12,000 years ago, North America was not the continent you know today. It was a land of monsters, where mammoths with tusks 16 feet long thundered across the Great Plains. Saber-toothed cats with fangs like carving knives stalked the forests of what is now Los Angeles. Armored glyptodons the size of small cars lumbered through the swamps of Florida. Ground sloths 20 feet tall stripped leaves from the treetops of Texas. And dire wolves hunted in packs so large they darkened the valleys of the Midwest. And then, in a geological heartbeat, nearly all of them vanished. 70% of all large mammals in North America died. The giants were gone, and standing in their footprints were the first Americans. This is the story of the day the giants died, and the mystery that still divides scientists today. Did the first Americans hunt them to extinction? Did the changing climate starve them? Or did something far more terrible fall from the sky? Welcome to the lost world of Ice Age North America. Welcome to the greatest extinction mystery on Earth. To understand what was lost, you have to imagine a continent that no longer exists. The Ice Age was not ending gently. Glaciers 2 miles thick still covered most of Canada and the northern United States. So much water was locked in ice that the ocean was 300 feet lower than it is now. Florida was twice its current size. The Bering Land Bridge connected Siberia to Alaska, a vast grassy plain called Beringia, and the climate was cooler, drier, and more volatile than anything humans have experienced since. But it was not empty. North America was the most dangerous safari park on Earth. Columbian mammoths, larger than African elephants, migrated in herds across the Midwest. Woolly mammoths with shaggy, red-brown fur dominated the colder northern regions. Mastodons, with their straighter tusks and forest-dwelling habits, roamed the eastern woodlands. Camels and horses, animals we associate with other continents, were native to North America in the thousands. Giant bison, with horns spanning 7 feet, charged across the plains. The short-faced bear, standing 12 feet on its hind legs, was the largest land carnivore on the continent. The American lion, 25% larger than today's African lions, patrolled the canyons of the Southwest. The giant ground sloth was an herbivore, but its claws were 3 feet long and sharp as sides. Even the deer were enormous. The stag moose carried a rack of antlers wider than a man is tall. This was the world the first Americans walked into, and they did not arrive all at once. For thousands of years, small bands of hunter-gatherers crossed from Siberia into Alaska following the herds, moving south through an ice-free corridor that opened between the great glaciers, or perhaps by boat hugging the Pacific coast, island hopping down from Alaska. However, they came by roughly 13,000 years ago. They had reached the tip of South America, making them the most successful migration in human history. And then something changed. Around 13,000 years ago, a new culture exploded across North America with terrifying speed. And archaeologists call them the Clovis people, named after the town in New Mexico, where their distinctive stone tools were first discovered. In the 1930s, the Clovis point is a work of lethal art. A spear tipped 6 inches long fluted down the center, sharp enough to pierce mammoth hide, the most advanced hunting technology on Earth. At the time, and the Clovis people were not scavengers. They were big game specialists. Archaeologists have found Clovis points buried in mammoth bones. In a site called Blackwater Draw, they found the remains of 7 mammoths, killed and butchered by Clovis hunters. These were not opportunistic kills. This was industrial-scale hunting. And here is where the mystery begins. Because the Clovis people appear in the archaeological record almost exactly when the megafauna begin to vanish. The timing is either a coincidence or a confession, and it has divided scientists for over half a century. In the 1960s, a geoscientist named Paul Martin proposed a theory that changed everything. He called it the Overkill Hypothesis, and it was as simple as it was brutal. When humans first arrived in North America, the animals had never seen a 2-legged predator before. They were naive prey in Africa, where humans evolved. The megafauna learned to fear us over millions of years. That is why elephants and rhinos still exist there today, but in the Americas, the giants had no evolutionary warning. They did not run, they did not hide. And the Clovis hunters took full advantage, Martin, and called it a blitzkrieg, a lightning war of extinction. A small number of highly skilled hunters moving fast could wipe out a continent. And the math, he argued, checks out. A single Clovis band killing just one mammoth per month could eliminate thousands over a generation. And mammoths reproduce slowly. A female carries her calf for nearly 2 years. So if you kill the adults faster than they can breed, the population collapses. This pattern repeats everywhere humans have gone. In Australia, humans arrived 50,000 years ago, and the megafauna vanished shortly after. In New Zealand, the Maori arrived 700 years ago, and within 2 centuries, the 9-foot-tall moa was gone. In Madagascar, humans arrived 2,000 years ago, and the elephant, birds, and giant lemurs disappeared. The pattern is unmistakable. Humans arrive, giants die every single time. But not everyone is convinced. The overkill hypothesis is elegant, but elegance is not proof. Critics point out a devastating flaw in Martin's math. There were not enough Clovis to kill that many animals. Estimates suggest fewer than 10,000 humans lived in all of North America at the time, and 10,000 people spread across an entire continent could not hunt 70% of all large mammals to extinction, not without leaving far more evidence than we have found. We should be finding mammoth kill sites everywhere, but we do not. Only a tiny fraction of extinct megafauna skeletons show any sign of human butchery, and the vast majority simply died. And the timing is messier than it first appears. Some megafauna went extinct before the Clovis people arrived. Others hung on for centuries. If humans were the primary cause, the extinctions should cluster around human arrival. But they do not. Something else was happening. Something bigger. The Earth itself was changed. The Ice Age was ending, and it was not ending gently. For over 100,000 years, glaciers had advanced and retreated in rhythmic cycles. But this final retreat was different. Temperatures rose rapidly. The great ice sheets began to collapse. Meltwater poured into the oceans. Sea levels rose by hundreds of feet. Forests replaced grasslands, and the open habitats that mammoths and bison depended on shrank and fragmented. The animals were squeezed into smaller and smaller pockets of suitable land. Climate change, argue the skeptics of overkill, was the real killer. But the climate was not just warming. It was becoming chaotic. Temperatures swung wildly from year to year, and the animals could not adapt fast enough. Mammoths were built for cold, dry grasslands, their thick fur, their massive size, their slow metabolism. All of it was fine-tuned for the Ice Age. So as the world warmed, they were living in the wrong body, in the wrong place at the wrong time. But here's where the climate argument gets complicated. Because the Earth did not just warm up and stay warm. It suddenly got cold again. Violently cold. Around 12,800 years ago, the warming trend slammed into reverse. Temperatures plummeted. Glaciers that had been retreating began to advance again. And this cold snap lasted over 1,000 years. Scientists call it the Younger Dryas. And it remains one of the most bizarre climate events. In the last 100,000 years, a warm, thawing world suddenly flash froze. Plants that had begun to flower were buried under snow. Rivers that had started flowing freely froze solid again. And the animals that had begun to adapt to warmth were hit by a second, even crueler shock. If gradual warming was a problem, sudden catastrophic cooling was a death sentence. But what could cause such a violent reversal? The answer, some scientists believe, came from the sky, not gradually. Not from human spears, but in a single terrible day around 12,800 years ago. A fragmented comet, or asteroid, is believed to have struck North America. The impact or impacts would have been devastating. Firestorms across the continent. Shock waves that flattened forests. The air itself would have caught fire, and animals hundreds of miles from the impact sites would have been incinerated. Those that survived the flames faced something worse. The impact kicked so much debris into the atmosphere that the sun vanished and nuclear winter descended. Temperatures dropped within days, not decades. Plants withered without sunlight, and the food chain collapsed from the bottom up. Herbivores starved first, then the predators that fed on them. And the Clovis people, dependent on big game, simply disappeared. The archaeological record goes silent. Clovis sites are buried beneath a distinctive black layer. Scientists call it the black mat. It is a dark, carbon-rich sediment found at sites across North America. Below the black mat, mammoth bones, Clovis tools, fireplaces. Above the black mat, nothing. No megafauna bones, no Clovis points. Just an eerie emptiness that lasts for centuries. The black mat contains microscopic diamonds. Nanodiamonds, tiny crystals, formed only under extreme heat and pressure. The kind of pressure you get from a cosmic impact. It also contains iridium, an element rare on Earth, but common in asteroids, and tiny metallic spherules. Molten droplets of rock and metal. All of it points to one explanation. Something from space hit North America, and it changed everything. But here's the problem after decades of searching. No one has found the crater. No hole in the ground, no shocked quartz, no definitive smoking gun. A crater that size should be unmistakable. Unless the impactor hit the ice sheet, 2 miles of ice would have swallowed the crater, entirely melted away 12,000 years ago, taking the evidence with it. Or perhaps it was not a solid impact at all. A Tunguska-style airburst exploding in the sky, not on the ground. That would explain the lack of a crater.
But critics are not convinced. They argue the nanodiamonds could have formed by other means, the iridium could be volcanic, the black mat could be nothing more than bog sediment. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis remains deeply controversial. Some call it a paradigm shift, others call it pseudoscience. The truth is, we may never know for certain what killed the giants, but we know what happened next. The Clovis people were gone, but humans did not die out. They adapted, diversified their diet, developed new tools for new prey, and the fulsome culture replaced Clovis with smaller points for smaller game. The age of the giants was over, and the world that replaced it was quieter, smaller, faster, more cautious. The Americas would not see elephants again until Columbus, the saber-toothed would live on only in memory and bone, and the first Americans, those who survived, became the ancestors of every indigenous nation on the continent. Their story is the story of human resilience, but it is also the story of loss. We will never hear the trumpeting of a Columbian mammoth. We will never see a ground sloth strip a tree. We will never know what North America sounded like when it was full of giants. The silence they left behind is permanent. Walk through a museum. Stand before the skeleton of a short-faced bear. Look up at the tusks of a mastodon. These are not just bones. They are monuments to a world that ended. And the question of who or what killed them remains unanswered. Was it us? Was it the climate? Was it the sky? Or was it some terrible combination of all three? The evidence is fragmentary, the timeline is messy, and 12,000 years is a long time to bury the truth. But the search continues. Every year, new sites are excavated. New tools analyze old bones, and slowly, piece by piece, the picture becomes clearer. Maybe one day we will find the crater beneath the ice. Maybe one day we will prove the blitzkrieg. Maybe the answer is something we have not imagined yet. Until then, we are left with the bones and the stories and the haunting knowledge that the world we know is not the world that was, that giants once walked where we walk now, that the first Americans lived among monsters, and that in a single catastrophic blink, the giants died. This was their world.